They called
You
Vesper
can't
Ashbourne
escape me.
useless for 28
Please
years.
don't.
No blood
Your
resonance,
fear is
no vampire
intoxicating.
mate, no value in a world where power meant everything. But when the Vampire King arrived under a blood-red moon, silver fire exploded from her veins. Fire that could destroy every vampire in the realm. In 8 days, she would transform from outcast healer to queen. And the ones who betrayed her 12 vampire lords would beg for mercy she'd never give. This is how Vesper Ashbourne burned her way to the throne. The scream cut through the pre-dawn silence like a blade through silk. Vesper's eyes snapped open. Her hands moved before her mind, fully woke fingers already reaching for the leather satchel beside her narrow bed. Another scream. Closer now. Coming from the cottage 3 doors down, the one with the blue shutters and the herb garden that never quite bloomed right. She was out the door in seconds, bare feet slapping against cold cobblestones. The village of Thornmere still slept under a sky that hadn't yet decided between night and morning. Mist clung to the ground like guilty secrets. The blue-shuttered door stood open. Vesper didn't knock. Inside, lamplight flickered across walls lined with dried flowers and fading tapestries. A woman lay on the bed, her face twisted in agony, one hand gripping the wooden bed frame hard enough to splinter it. Labor. But something was wrong. The scent of blood hung too heavy in the air. How long? Vesper dropped to her knees beside the bed, hands already checking the woman's pulse. Too fast, skin too pale. Since midnight. The husband hovered near the window, useless in his panic. The midwife said she said it was normal, but get me hot water, clean linens. Now. He scrambled. Vesper's fingers moved with practiced certainty, checking what the incompetent midwife had missed. There. The baby was breech. And the mother was hemorrhaging internally, slow but steady. Another hour and both would be gone. Vesper's jaw set, not on her watch. She worked fast. Repositioned the baby with careful pressure, ignoring the mother's cries. Pressed her palms to the woman's abdomen, feeling for the source of the bleeding. Found it. A small tear in tissue that shouldn't have torn. This was the part where healers in bigger cities would give up. Call it the God's will. Light candles and prepare for a funeral. Vesper closed her eyes, focused on the heat that sometimes bloomed under her skin when she concentrated hard enough. The village elders said it was just natural talent. Nothing magical, nothing special. The warmth spread, sank deeper. The bleeding slowed, stopped. 20 minutes later, a baby's cry split the air. Healthy, pink, perfect. The mother wept. The father fell to his knees, babbling thanks. Vesper cleaned her hands in the basin, watching pink water swirl. You saved them. The father gripped her shoulder. You saved them both. Vesper managed a tired smile. Just doing what needed doing. She left before they could press coins into her palm. They had so little already. 3 copper pieces sat on their table, probably all they had until next harvest. She wouldn't take food from a newborn's mouth. The sun was rising now, painting Thornmere's crooked rooftops in shades of amber and rust. Vesper walked the familiar path home, her satchel lighter than her feet. Exhaustion pulled at her bones. She'd been up half the night already treating old Gerald's infected leg wound. Sleep would be good. Sleep would be late night. Vesper's shoulders tensed before she turned. Odessa leaned against the doorframe of their shared cottage, arms crossed, blonde hair perfect despite the early hour. Her stepsister had mastered the art of looking beautiful while radiating disdain. Early morning, Vesper corrected, delivered a baby. How noble. Odessa's lips curved, but her eyes stayed cold. Mother wants to talk to you. About the household accounts. Again. Of course she did. Vesper pushed past Odessa into the cottage that had never quite felt like home. 8 years since her father died. 8 years of Constance's passive-aggressive needling and Odessa's casual cruelty. 8 years of being the outsider in her own house. Constance sat at the kitchen table, ledger open, fingers tapping in impatient rhythm. She was beautiful in that sharp, calculated way. Everything arranged just so. Hair, posture, the tilt of her chin that said she knew her worth and yours didn't measure up. Vesper, finally. Constance didn't look up from the numbers. You're aware the butcher's bill is 2 weeks overdue. I paid it yesterday. Vesper set her satchel down harder than necessary. Showed you the receipt. Yes, with money that should have gone to the textile merchant, who is now threatening to cut off our credit. Then maybe Odessa shouldn't order 3 new dresses every month. Odessa gasped like Vesper had slapped her. I need proper clothing, unlike some people who seem content looking like a washerwoman. Vesper glanced down at her plain brown dress, the hem still muddy from her pre-dawn run. Fair point, but she didn't have time for fashion when people were bleeding. The point Constance continued, voice knife sharp, is that you need to contribute more. You're 28 years old, Vesper. Most girls your age are settled, bonded, providing for their families through their mates' resources. There it was, the real complaint dressed up as concern about household finances. I provide through my work. Vesper's voice stayed level, barely. I healed 6 people this week. Saved 2 lives. Yes, how wonderful. Constance finally looked up, and her smile didn't reach her eyes. And yet you can't charge properly because you're too soft-hearted. Meanwhile, Odessa could have been bonded to Lord Kale's nephew if she hadn't been tainted by association with you. The unfairness of it burned, but Vesper had learned not to argue, just endure, wait for the storm to pass. I'm going to rest. She turned toward the narrow stairs. Of course, rest, while others work. Constance's voice followed her up. You know what people say, don't you, 28 years old and never once experienced blood resonance? It's unnatural, Vesper. It makes people uncomfortable. Vesper's hand gripped the stair rail. They wonder what's wrong with you. I wonder too. The door to Vesper's tiny room shut with a soft click. Not a slam, never a slam, because showing emotion gave Constance ammunition. Vesper sat on her bed, the narrow mattress creaking under her weight. Through the thin walls, she could hear Odessa laughing at something. Probably at her, 28 years old, no blood resonance. In a world where vampires ruled and humans either served or bonded, blood resonance was everything. That rare magical pull between a human and their perfect vampire match. When it happened, your life changed overnight. Security, status, purpose. Vesper had delivered 17 babies whose mothers had found their resonance. Stitched wounds for women who glowed with it. Watched friends disappear into vampire estates, never to return to mundane village life. She'd never felt even a whisper of it. Some people said it meant the gods hadn't finished her yet. Others said she was broken. Constance said it made her a burden. Vesper lay back, staring at the ceiling beams. Water stains spread across the plaster like brown continents. She traced them with her eyes, these familiar maps of decay. Maybe Constance was right. Maybe something was wrong with her. Sleep pulled her under before she could spiral deeper into the familiar darkness. The bells woke her. 3 tolls, then 3 more. Then 3 more again. Vesper shot upright. 9 bells. That pattern only meant one thing. Royalty. She stumbled to the window, throwing open the shutters. The street below had transformed. Villagers packed the square, craning necks toward the main road. Children perched on fathers' shoulders. Women in their best dresses clustered near the fountain. And coming down the road, a procession of black carriages that seemed to drink the sunlight. The blood moon conclave. Vesper's heart kicked hard against her ribs. She'd heard rumors, of course. Everyone had. Once every decade, the Vampire King called his 12 lords together to discuss territory disputes and trade agreements, usually held at the capital. But this year, for reasons no one quite understood, King Dorian Nightshade had chosen Thornmere, a nowhere village on the border of everywhere else. Vesper Constance's shout rattled the walls. Get down here. Make yourself presentable. Vesper grabbed the least wrinkled dress from her trunk. Dark green, almost respectable. She finger-combed her hair, gave up trying to tame the dark waves, and hurried downstairs. Constance and Odessa already stood at the door, both dressed like they were attending a ball. Odessa wore pale pink silk that probably cost more than Vesper made in 6 months. Constance had chosen deep purple velvet with gold embroidery. Finally, Constance's eyes raked over Vesper's simple dress. Disapproval radiated from every line of her face. Try not to embarrass us. They joined the crowd flowing toward the square. Vesper let herself be carried along, wedged between a butcher who smelled like smoke and a woman clutching a baby. Everyone pressed forward, desperate for a glimpse of power that would never touch their lives. The first carriage rolled to a stop. Silence fell like a curtain dropping. The door opened. A vampire emerged. Even from a distance, Vesper could feel the wrongness of him. Too still. Too perfect. Skin like marble, eyes like chips of amber. Lord Kale. She recognized him from the wanted posters, the warnings circulated to villages about which vampires to avoid. Brutal, they said. Cruel. Kept a dozen blood servants who never smiled. He surveyed the crowd like a man examining cattle. His gaze swept past Vesper without pausing. She was beneath notice, as always. 11 more vampires emerged from the other carriages, each more beautiful and terrible than the last, each radiating power that made her bones ache. Among them, a woman with silver hair and crimson dress moved with particular grace. Lady Morgath, someone whispered. The king's most trusted counselor. Then the final carriage door opened. The world held its breath. He stepped out into the afternoon sun, and Vesper understood why they called him Nightshade. Everything about him suggested darkness held back by force of will. Black hair that fell past his shoulders, eyes the color of winter storms, sharp cheekbones, and a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile centuries ago. King Dorian Nightshade. 500 years old, the story said, powerful enough to level cities, cold enough to freeze oceans. He wore midnight blue so dark it absorbed light. Silver clasps at his throat and wrists caught the sun, the only brightness about him. When he moved, it was with the liquid grace of a predator who'd never known prey that could escape. The crowd sank into bows and curtsies like wheat before wind. Vesper bent with them, eyes on the cobblestones. Her heart hammered for no reason she could name. Fear, probably. Any sane person feared vampires, especially vampire kings who could kill with a thought. Rise! His voice rolled over them like distant thunder. Deep, resonant. The kind of voice that made you want to obey before you'd consciously decided to move. The crowd straightened. Dorian's gaze swept across them, and for just a moment, for just a heartbeat, his eyes met Vesper's. Gray. Storm gray. Lightning strike gray. Then he looked away, turned toward the manor house that served as Thormir's administrative center, strode up the steps without a backward glance. The 12 lords followed. Lady Morgath glided beside the king, whispering something. The carriages rolled on. The crowd began to disperse, chattering excitedly about what they'd seen, who looked most dangerous, whether this meant new taxes or new opportunities. Vesper stood frozen. Her palms tingled. That strange warmth again, but different this time. Hotter, more insistent. Nothing. It was nothing. Probably just nerves from being so close to predators. Did you see his boots? Odessa clutched Constance's arm. Real silver buckles. And the fabric of his coat, I've never seen anything so fine. Power dress as well? Constance steered them back toward home. Come, we have much to prepare. If the lords decide to tour the village, we must be ready to make the right impression. Vesper followed them back, but her mind stayed in the square. Those eyes, storm gray. Why couldn't she stop thinking about those eyes? Night fell over Thornmere like a lover's hand, soft and suffocating. Vesper couldn't sleep. She'd tried. Lay in bed for 2 hours counting the beams, the water stains, the cracks in the plaster. Nothing worked. Her skin felt too tight, her pulse too fast. The moon rose full and heavy and wrong. Red around the edges. Blood moon, the old women called it. Happened once every few years. Superstition said it brought change. Usually the bad kind. Vesper gave up on sleep. She pulled on her cloak, laced her boots, and slipped out the back door. Constance and Odessa slept soundly in their rooms, dreaming of vampire lords and social climbing. The village streets lay empty. Smart people stayed inside when vampires were near. Vesper wasn't feeling particularly smart. She walked without destination, letting her feet choose the path. Past the baker's shop, past the well where girls drew water and shared secrets, past the blacksmith's forge cold, now ashes still glowing faint orange. The scent hit her between one step and the next. Night jasmine. And under it something metallic. Iron. Blood, but not quite blood. Something richer. Darker. Vesper stopped walking. Her head swam. The world tilted. The scent grew stronger, wrapped around her throat like invisible fingers. Pulled. Insisted. Demanded. No, this wasn't possible. Her heart kicked into a gallop. Heat flooded her veins. Her skin prickled, too sensitive suddenly. The rough weave of her cloak felt like sandpaper. Blood resonance. After 28 years of nothing, it slammed into her like a runaway carriage. The pain came next. Deep, visceral, her body trying to tear itself apart and rebuild at the same time. Vesper doubled over, one hand braced against a wall. Breathe, she needed to breathe. But every breath brought more of that scent. Night jasmine and iron, and every inhale made the pulling stronger. She needed to get away from the village, away from people. If anyone saw her like this, if anyone knew, Vesper ran. The forest path appeared under her feet like muscle memory. She'd walked it 1,000 times, gathering herbs, finding quiet when Constance's needling became too much. The ancient oak grove, her sanctuary. Trees closed around her, blocking out the blood moon's light. The scent followed. No, not followed. It was ahead of her, in the grove. Waiting. Vesper burst into the clearing and stopped. 7 ancient oaks ringed a space carpeted in moss. Moonlight filtered through the leaves, painting everything silver red. A small stream cut through the center water, whispering over stones. and standing beside the largest oak perfectly still was the Vampire King. Dorian Nightshade watched her with those storm-gray eyes. No surprise on his face. He'd been expecting her. You felt it too. Not a question, a statement. Vesper couldn't speak. Another wave of heat crashed through her, buckling her knees. She caught herself against an oak trunk. Bark bit into her palms. Dorian moved. One moment beside the far oak, the next right in front of her. Vampire speed, faster than human eyes should track. Breathe, he said quietly. It will pass. What? Her voice cracked. What's happening to me? Blood resonance. He stayed just out of reach. Careful, controlled. The rarest kind, between human and vampire. But I'm 28. It doesn't start this late. It does when the match is powerful enough. His eyes never left hers. Sometimes the bond waits for the right moment, the right person. The heat built. Vesper gasped back, arching against the tree. Her vision blurred. She saw things that couldn't be real. Wings, fire, scales that gleamed like moonlight on water. Dorian's hand caught her before she fell. His touch sent electricity racing up her arm. Don't. She tried to pull back, but her body wouldn't obey. Don't compel me. Please. Something crossed his face. Pain. Old pain. I won't. I don't do that. All vampires. I'm not all vampires. His grip gentled, but didn't release. Sit. Before you collapse. He guided her down to the moss. Vesper's legs folded like paper. The ground felt solid at least, real. Dorian knelt beside her, maintaining that careful distance. The resonance is new. Your body doesn't know what to do with it yet. That's why it hurts. Make it stop. I can ease it. There's a technique, but I need your permission, even through the pain and heat and confusion that penetrated. Permission. Vampires didn't ask permission. What technique? Scent sharing. I stay close. Let my presence calm your system. No compulsion, no bite, just proximity. Vesper searched his face for lies. Found only patience. Okay. Dorian moved closer, not touching, just near enough that she could feel the cold radiating from him. All vampires ran cold, but his was different. Not the chill of death. More like winter wind. Clean. Sharp. He inhaled slowly. Vesper watched his eyes, darkened pupils expanding. You smell like summer rain, he murmured. Lavender. And something else. Something I can't name. The pain eased, fractionally. Vesper's breathing slowed. Better, she nodded, didn't trust her voice. They sat in silence. The stream murmured, leaves rustled. The blood moon painted them in shades of crimson and silver. Then the warmth in Vesper's palms flared, not the gentle heat of healing. This was different, hotter, wilder. Silver light spilled from her hands. Dorian jerked back, eyes wide. Don't move. But Vesper couldn't have moved if she wanted to. The light spread up her arms. Where it touched, her skin changed, shifted. Scales appeared, iridescent and impossible, beautiful and terrifying. What is this? Terror cracked her voice. What's wrong with me? Dorian stared at the scales, at the silver light, at her. Silver veil, he whispered. Gods, your silver veil. What does that mean? He reached out slowly, like approaching something wild. His finger traced one scale on her wrist. Where he touched, the light pulsed brighter. Images flooded Vesper's mind, not her memories. His. Darkness. Chains. A woman's face twisted in concentration as power flowed from her hands, forcing, binding. The sensation of having your will ripped away, your body no longer your own. The memory shattered. Vesper gasped back in the present. But Dorian was lost in his own vision. His hand tightened on her wrist. She saw through his eyes now, seeing what he saw in her mind. A woman who looked like Vesper but wasn't. Same dark hair, same bone structure, standing before a pyre as vampires circled. Silver fire bloomed from her hands, keeping them back, defiant even as the flames rose. A voice, the woman's voice, echoing across centuries. My bloodline will endure, and when they return, you will answer for this. Then fire. So much fire. The vision released them both. They knelt in the moss, breathing hard, his hand still on her wrist. The scales had faded. The light dimmed, but something remained. A thread between them, silver and red, visible only when Vesper wasn't looking directly at it. What was that? She demanded. Dorian's jaw worked. Shared memory. The resonance bond allows it. You saw my past. I saw yours. Or not yours. Your ancestors. I don't understand. He released her wrist but didn't move away. Silver veil, a bloodline of dragon shifters. Powerful. Rare. 300 years ago, vampires hunted them to extinction. His voice went flat. We feared what they could do. Dragon shifters. Vesper laughed high and brittle. That's impossible. You just grew scales. Your hands are glowing. Tell me again what's impossible. Fair point. Vesper looked at her palms. The warmth had faded but not vanished. Still there. Waiting. The woman in the vision. Who was she? Your ancestor. I don't know which generation, but she was Silver Veil. And she died because vampires fear what they can't control. Fear what? Dorian met her eyes. Dragon fire purifies. It burns away compulsion, breaks blood bonds, destroys the magic vampires use to maintain power over others. He paused. If word gets out that you exist, every vampire in the realm will want you dead. You're a threat to the entire power structure. The words landed like stones in still water. Ripples of understanding spread outward. Vesper was dangerous, just by existing. No one can know about tonight. Dorian's voice carried the weight of absolute command. Do you understand? No one? I won't tell. Not telling isn't enough. The scales will appear again when you're stressed or emotional. You need to learn control. Fast. I don't even know what I am. You're Silver Veil. You're rare. You're powerful. He stood offering his hand. And you're in more danger than you've ever been in your life. Vesper let him pull her to her feet. The thread between them brightened for a moment then faded. What do I do? Dorian's expression went grim. Survive the next 8 days. The conclave ends then. Until it does, 12 of the most powerful vampires in the realm are in your village. Any one of them would kill you if they knew what you are. You're one of them. Yes. No hesitation. But I remember what it's like to have my will taken from me. I won't do that to anyone else. Not even to save myself. The sincerity in his voice made her chest ache. The blood resonance, she said quietly. Between us. What does that mean? It means you're my mate, and I'm yours. Fate decided we belong together. His smile was bitter, but fate has terrible timing. Can we ignore it? Can you ignore your heartbeat? No, she couldn't. Already the thought of walking away from him made her bones ache. I should go back. Vesper stepped toward the path. Before someone notices, I'm gone. Dorian caught her hand. The contact sent sparks racing up her arm. Be careful. Trust no one. If the scales appear, hide them. If someone asks where you were tonight, I was walking. Couldn't sleep because of the excitement over the conclave. Good. He released her but didn't step back. Tomorrow night, same place. I'll teach you what I can about control. Why are you helping me? The question hung in the air between them. Dorian's thumb brushed across her knuckles. The gentleness of it undid her. Because 200 years ago, someone tried to force a bond on me. Used magic to enslave me. It lasted 3 months before I broke free. His eyes went distant. I still remember what it felt like. Having no choice, no voice, no self. He focused on her again. I won't let that happen to you. I won't let anyone take your choices away. Vesper's throat closed. No one had ever protected her before. Not her father, not Constance. She'd learned to save herself. But here was a vampire king offering to stand between her and destruction. Thank you, she whispered. Dorian's expression softened, just for a moment, just enough to glimpse the person beneath the crown. Go, for the moon sets. Vesper walked toward the path. At the edge of the grove, she looked back. He stood beneath the ancient oak-silver moonlight, painting him in shades of shadow and ice. Their eyes met across the distance. The thread between them pulled taut, glowing. Then she turned and ran. Vesper slipped back into the cottage just as the sky began to lighten. Gray dawn, the kind that promised rain. She climbed the stairs on silent feet, paused outside Constance's door, snoring. Good. Her own room waited small and familiar and safe. Vesper shut the door and leaned against it, heart still racing. Tonight changed everything. She walked to the small mirror above her wash basin, studied her reflection. Same face, same dark hair that never quite behaved, same brown eyes. But when she focused, really focused, she could see a shimmer beneath her skin. Silver light banked but not gone. Dragonfire. Vesper pressed her palms together. The warmth responded eager. She thought about letting it out, seeing the scales again, understanding what she was. But Dorian's warning echoed in her mind. Dangerous, threatened, hunted. She tamped the warmth down, forced it into the same place she'd always pushed unwanted feelings. Deep. Hidden. The silver light flickered and died. Outside her window, Thormir woke. Shopkeepers opened shutters. Children ran through streets. Life continued ordinary and oblivious. None of them knew that a dragon walked among them. None of them knew that in 8 days everything would burn. Vesper crawled into bed fully clothed. Exhaustion crashed over her like a wave. Her last thought before sleep claimed her was of storm-gray eyes and a voice that promised both danger and salvation. Tomorrow night, same place. She'd be there, even if it killed her. Vesper woke to sunlight slicing through her window like an accusation. Day 2, her body ached in places she didn't know could ache. Muscles tight, bones heavy. Every breath reminded her of what she'd become in the space between midnight and dawn. Dragon shifter, silver veil, hunted. She sat up slowly. Her room looked the same. Same water-stained ceiling, same narrow bed, same trunk holding her 3 dresses and handful of possessions. But everything felt different now. The walls too thin, the door too flimsy. No protection at all against what was coming. Voices drifted up from downstairs. Constance and Odessa already awake and chattering. Something about the conclave. About vampires touring the village. Vesper's stomach dropped. She dressed quickly. Dark gray today. Inconspicuous. Her fingers fumbled with the laces. They still tingled from last night's transformation. She could feel the dragon waiting just beneath her skin, patient as winter. Downstairs, Constance stood at the kitchen table arranging flowers in a chipped vase. Expensive flowers. Roses that cost more than they should spend. But appearances mattered more than food, apparently. Finally awake, Constance didn't look up. I need you to go to the market. We're out of sugar and decent tea. And try not to look quite so disheveled. There are important people in town. Vesper bit back a response. Took the coin purse Constance held out. Light. Always so light. And Vesper, Constance's smile didn't reach her eyes. Try not to embarrass us. The vampires may actually interact with common folk today. It would be unfortunate if they noticed our connection to someone so ordinary. The word landed like a slap, but Vesper had learned not to flinch. She left without answering. The morning air tasted like rain that hadn't fallen yet. Storm clouds gathered on the horizon, dark and heavy. The blood moon had set hours ago, but its influence lingered. Everything felt charged. Waiting. Thormir's streets bustled with unusual energy. Shopkeepers displayed their finest goods. Women wore their best dresses. Children ran wild, hoping to glimpse vampire lords in daylight. Vesper kept her head down, moved through the crowd like a shadow. She could feel eyes on her, occasionally curious glances that slid away when she looked up. Same as always, the healer who never found resonance. The oddity, the failure. If only they knew. The market square teemed with people. Vesper wove between stalls selling bread, cheese, fabric tools. The sugar merchant's booth sat in the far corner, partially hidden behind a display of copper pots. She was 3 steps away when the scent hit her. Night jasmine, iron, that impossible combination that made her blood sing. No, not here, not now. Vesper turned, searching for the source. Found him immediately. Dorian stood near the fountain, dressed in deep charcoal that made him look carved from midnight. 2 vampire lords flanked him. One was Kale, brutal and cold. The other was Lady Morgath's silver hair, gleaming crimson dress, flowing like blood-made silk. They were inspecting the village. Exactly what Constance had said. Dorian's eyes found hers across the crowded square. For one heartbeat, the world narrowed to just that connection. Storm gray meeting earth brown. The thread between them flared bright enough that Vesper wondered if others could see it. Then Dorian looked away. Deliberate, protective, right. They couldn't acknowledge each other. Couldn't let anyone suspect. Vesper forced herself to turn back toward the sugar merchant. Her hands shook as she counted out coins. 3 copper pieces for half a pound of sugar. Highway robbery, but the merchant knew he had a captive audience. Anything else, miss? The merchant's smile showed too many teeth. No, thank you. Vesper tucked the small package into her basket and turned to leave. Lord Kale blocked her path. Up close, he was worse than from a distance. Too perfect. Skin like polished marble, eyes like amber, caught in ice. He tilted his head, studying her the way cats study mice. Excuse me. Vesper tried to step around him. Kale's hand shot out, gripping her wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, just enough to stop her. To show he could. You smell strange, his nostrils flared. Different from the other humans here. Vesper's heart kicked into a gallop. No, not now. Control it. I'm a healer. She kept her voice steady. I work with herbs. Probably just that. Perhaps. Kale didn't release her wrist. His thumb pressed against her pulse point. Or perhaps something else, something riper. You're 28, aren't you? Old for a human woman who hasn't found resonance? The crowd around them had gone quiet, watching, always watching. Let me go. Vesper pulled back. Kale's grip tightened. I don't think so. I think we should discuss this interesting scent. Privately. The threat hung in the air between them. Vesper's mind raced. She could scream. But who would help her against a vampire lord? She could fight. But that would only make it worse. The lady asked you to release her. Dorian's voice cut across the square like winter wind. Kale turned, still holding Vesper's wrist. Your Majesty, I was merely curious about this one. She smells unusual. Many healers do. Herbs, medicines, blood. Dorian's expression stayed neutral, but his eyes promised violence. Release her. Now. Kale's jaw tightened. For a moment, Vesper thought he might refuse. Might challenge the king right here in the market square. Then he let go, stepped back, bowed slightly. Of course, Your Majesty. My apologies if I caused offense. Dorian didn't acknowledge the apology. He looked at Vesper, and she saw the warning in his eyes. Go, now, she went. Her legs carried her through the crowd on autopilot. Behind her, she heard Dorian's voice, cold and commanding, directing Kale elsewhere, protecting her without making it obvious. Vesper made it 3 streets away before she had to stop, lean against a wall, breathe. Her wrist throbbed where Kale had gripped it. When she looked down, she saw faint silver shimmer beneath the skin, the scales trying to emerge in response to the threat. She pressed her hand flat against the cool stone wall, forced the dragon down, forced the scales to retreat. This was only day 2. 7 more days of hiding, 7 more days of control. She didn't know if she'd make it. That night, Vesper returned to the ancient oak grove. Dorian was already there, standing in the same spot as before. Like he'd never left. Like he'd been waiting centuries for her to arrive. That was close. He crossed to her in 3 long strides. His hands framed her face, tilting it toward the moonlight, checking for damage. Did he hurt you? No, you stopped him. I can't always be there to stop them. His thumbs brushed her cheekbones. The gentleness undid something in her chest. You need to learn control. Fast. I don't even know where to start. With understanding what you are. Dorian released her and moved to the stream, knelt beside the water. Come, sit. Vesper settled on the moss beside him. The night wrapped around them, intimate and dangerous. Stars wheeled overhead. The stream whispered secrets. Silver Veil, Dorian began, voice low, were the original dragon shifters. Pure blood, powerful beyond measure. They could shift into full dragon form, breathe fire that purified rather than destroyed. He paused. And that purifying fire was the vampire's greatest threat. Why so? Because vampire power rests on compulsion. Blood bonds, the ability to force obedience. His reflection rippled in the stream. Silver Veil fire burns that away, breaks the bonds, frees the enslaved. Understanding dawned cold and clear. So vampires hunted them. Systematically, 300 years ago, every Silver Veil killed or driven into hiding. Dorian's jaw tightened. It was called the Purification. Those who led it claimed Silver Veil were dangerous, unstable, a threat to order. They were free, and they threatened a power structure built on enslavement. He looked at her then. The real threat was what they represented. Choice, autonomy, the idea that bonds should be chosen, not forced. Vesper's throat ached. My ancestor, the woman in the vision. She died for that. She died fighting for it. There's a difference. They sat in silence. The weight of history pressed down. 300 years of genocide, of hiding, of fear. How did my bloodline survive? Some Silver Veil hid among humans, suppressed their nature, never shifted, never used their fire. Dorian traced patterns in the moss. The power went dormant, sometimes for generations, until something triggered it awake. Blood resonance. Exactly. The bond yet that a vampire can act as a catalyst, and especially a powerful bond. Like theirs. The words hung unspoken. Vesper looked at her palms. So what do I do? How do I control it? Stop thinking of it as something to control. Think of it as part of yourself that you're learning to express safely. Dorian held out his hand. May I? She placed her hand in his. Ice and fire. The contrast sent shivers racing up her arm. Close your eyes, he instructed. Feel the warmth. Don't fight it. Just feel it. Vesper obeyed. The dragon stirred under her skin, spreading from her palms up her arms. Not painful now, just present. Good. Now imagine it has a shape, a color. What do you see as silver, like moonlight, but alive, moving? Follow it, see where it goes. The silver light traveled through her body, down her spine, across her shoulders. It gathered in specific places. Her palms, the base of her skull, her shoulder blades where wings would emerge if she let them. I see it, she whispered. Now call it to your hands, just your hands, nowhere else. Vesper focused, pulled the warmth, the light into her palms. It resisted at first, wanting to spread everywhere, but slowly, reluctantly, it obeyed. Her hands began to glow, soft silver radiance. Perfect. Now let it fade. Harder. The light wanted to stay, wanted to burn brighter, but Vesper imagined closing a door. Gently, firmly, the glow dimmed, faded, went dark. She opened her eyes. Dorian watched her with something like pride. You're a fast learner. I've had to be my whole life. Understanding flickered in his expression. The stepmother. She's cruel to you. Not a question. Somehow he knew. She's practical. I'm a burden who brings no value to the household. Vesper pulled her hand back. At least that's what she tells me. Daily. You save lives. Which pays poorly and brings no social status. She smiled, but it felt bitter. Constance wanted a daughter who would bond with a wealthy vampire. Instead, she got me. You did bond with a vampire. Dorian's voice went soft. The most powerful one in the realm. She doesn't know that. Can't know that. No. He stood, offered his hand to pull her up. But I know it, and I know you're worth 10 of her. The words shouldn't have mattered so much, but they did. They settled in her chest like embers warming places that had been cold for years. We should practice shifting, Dorian said. Partial transformation, so you can control what emerges and when. They trained until the moon set. Vesper learned to call the scales to just one arm, just one hand. Learned to hold them for minutes at a time without the fire spreading. Learned to suppress them even when her emotions ran hot. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. As dawn grayed the sky, Dorian walked her to the edge of the grove. Tomorrow night, he said, same time. Tomorrow, Vesper hesitated. Thank you for teaching me, for protecting me today. I told you, I won't let anyone take your choices. His hand brushed her cheek, just once, brief and tender. Sleep well, Vesper Ashbourne. He was gone before she could respond, vanished into the pre-dawn shadows like he'd never been there. Vesper walked home alone, but for the first time in years, she didn't feel lonely. Day 3 dawned bright and merciless. Vesper woke to shouting. She bolted upright, Constance's voice shrill with anger. Odessa's higher panicked. And a third voice, male, unfamiliar. Vesper threw on her dress and rushed downstairs. 3 men stood in the kitchen, town guards, but wearing expressions she'd never seen before. Fear, suspicion, disgust. Constance stood between them and the stairs, arms crossed. I've told you, she's done nothing wrong. That's for the council to decide. The lead guard's hand rested on his sword hilt. Where is Vesper Ashbourne? Here. Vesper descended the last few steps. What's this about? The guard's eyes raked over her, searching for something. You're to come with us. The Vampire Council wishes to speak with you. Ice flooded Vesper's veins. On what charge? You'll be informed when you arrive. This was it. Someone had seen. Someone knew. I'll come quietly. Vesper kept her voice steady. Just let me get my cloak. No. The guard stepped forward. You'll come now, as you are. Behind the guards, Constance's expression shifted. Just for a moment. Just a flicker. But Vesper saw it. Satisfaction. Understanding crashed down. Constance hadn't been defending her. She'd been playing a role, making it look like she protested. Mother, Vesper's voice cracked on the word she rarely used. What did you do? I did what I had to. Constance's chin lifted. For the family. For our safety. Betrayal tasted like copper and ash. The guards seized Vesper's arms. She didn't fight. Couldn't. The shock froze her more effectively than any chains. They dragged her out into the street. Morning sun, bright and cheerful, mocked the moment. Villagers stopped to stare. Whispered behind hands. Pointed. The walk to the manor house lasted both seconds and hours. Vesper's mind raced. What had Constance told them? How much did they know? Would Dorian be there? Could he help without revealing their connection? The manor's great doors opened like a mouth, swallowed her whole. Inside, the air smelled like old money and older power. Portraits of dead nobility lined the walls. Tapestries depicted battles and coronations. Everything designed to remind you how small you were. The guards led her to the main hall. 12 vampire lords sat in a semicircle arranged like judges at a trial. In the center, elevated slightly, sat King Dorian Nightshade. His face showed nothing. Absolute control. But Vesper saw his hands white-knuckled on the armrests. And standing to the side, radiating smug victory, was Lady Morgath. Her crimson dress seemed darker today. Her silver hair caught the light like a blade. Eyes like black diamonds glittered with malice barely concealed. Power radiated from her like heat from a forge. Vesper Ashbourne. Morgath's voice poured like honey over broken glass. How kind of you to join us. Vesper's knees wanted to buckle. She locked them, refused to fall. You've been accused. Morgath continued, circling Vesper like a shark, of a very serious crime. Care to confess before we present the evidence? I don't know what crime you mean. No, Morgath's smile sharpened. Then let me enlighten you. You stand accused of being Silver Veil, a bloodline of traitors and murderers who attempted to overthrow vampire rule 3 centuries ago. She paused for effect. A bloodline we thought extinct, until recently. The room tilted. Vesper gripped the back of a chair to stay upright. I'm a healer, just a healer. Just a healer who can breathe silver fire. Morgath gestured. Lord Kale, your testimony, please. Kale rose from his seat. His amber eyes locked on Vesper with predatory focus. Yesterday in the market square, this woman resisted my lawful inquiry. When I attempted to detain her for questioning, her skin began to shimmer. Silver scales. Unmistakable. His voice carried to every corner. The scent of her is wrong. Not human. Not entirely. Lies. He was lying. Vesper had controlled the scales, hadn't she? But doubt crept in. Had there been a shimmer she missed? A moment of lost control. Furthermore, Morgath said, we have testimony from her own family. The doors opened. Constance entered, Odessa trailing behind her. Vesper's world cracked down the middle. Mrs. Ashbourne, Morgath's smile was a knife wrapped in silk. Tell the council what you told me. Constance didn't look at Vesper, kept her eyes on Morgath. Vesper has always been strange. Never had blood resonance like normal girls. I noticed her hands glowing sometimes when she treated patients. Silver light. Unnatural. And the fire? 2 nights ago I saw smoke coming from her room. When I investigated, her hands were on fire. Silver flames. She tried to hide it, but I saw. Lies. Why didn't you report this immediately? One of the other lords asked. She's my stepdaughter. Constance managed to look pained. I wanted to protect her, but when Lord Kale was injured, when I realized the danger she posed to our community, I had to speak. Vesper found her voice. You're lying. You're lying to save yourself. Am I? Constance finally met her eyes. Cold. Calculated. Deny it then. Deny you have power. The trap closed with perfect precision. If Vesper denied it, Morgath would demand proof. Testing that would reveal the truth. If she admitted it, she condemned herself. Dorian leaned forward. These accusations require evidence beyond testimony. I propose we— Evidence has been provided, Morgath interrupted smoothly. Mrs. Ashbourne accepted a reward for information leading to the capture of a Silver Veil descendant. 100,000 in gold. Already transferred. 100,000. Constance had sold her for 100,000. The number echoed in Vesper's skull. That's what her life was worth. What 8 years of living under the same roof amounted to. The money proves nothing, Dorian said, voice tight with controlled fury. Except that you paid someone to tell you what you wanted to hear. The money proves I reward those who serve the realm's safety. Morgath turned to the council. I move we detain the accused until a full investigation can be conducted, for the protection of all present. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the lords. I second the motion, Kale said immediately. Dorian's jaw worked. I object. We have no concrete proof. We have multiple testimonies, physical evidence of unusual abilities, and the precedent of Silver Veil's historical treason. Morgath's eyes glittered. Unless your majesty has reason to believe the accused deserves special protection. The threat hung clear in the air. If Dorian defended her too vigorously, Morgath would suspect why, would investigate the connection, would destroy them both. Vesper watched the war play out across his face. Duty versus desire, kingdom versus mate. She made the choice for him. I'll go willingly, Vesper said quietly. I've done nothing wrong. An investigation will prove that. Dorian's eyes met hers. She saw the anguish there, the helplessness, but also understanding. She was protecting him, protecting them both. Very well, Morgath gestured to the guards. Take her to the holding cells. We'll schedule a formal trial. Let's say day 8. That gives us time to gather all necessary evidence. Day 8, the day the conclave ended, the day they'd planned to leave. The guards seized Vesper's arms again. She didn't resist as they led her away. At the doorway, she looked back once. Dorian sat rigid as stone hands clenched, watching her disappear. The thread between them stretched thin but didn't break. Constance stood beside Morgath, whispering something. Morgath smiled, and Vesper understood with cold clarity that this had been planned long before yesterday's market confrontation. The pieces had been moving for days. She'd just been too blind to see. The cell door slammed shut with a sound like the end of the world. The dungeons beneath Thormir's manor had been built 3 centuries ago. Stone walls, iron bars, no windows, perfect for keeping things that shouldn't see daylight. Vesper's cell measured 10 feet by 10 feet. A narrow bench served as a bed, a bucket in the corner for waste, nothing else. Silver chains hung from the walls ready to bind anyone foolish enough to resist. But the guards hadn't chained her. Yet, just locked the door and left her in darkness that pressed against her eyes like a physical weight. Vesper sank onto the bench, drew her knees to her chest, let the reality of her situation crash over her like waves. Arrested, betrayed, scheduled for execution in 5 days. Hours passed, or minutes. Time lost meaning in the dark. Then footsteps, multiple sets, coming closer. Vesper stood, pressed against the far wall, ready for whatever came next. The cell door opened. Torchlight flooded in, blinding after so long in darkness. When her eyes adjusted, she saw Dorian. He stepped inside, alone. The door closed behind him with a soft click. "You shouldn't be here," Vesper whispered. "I know." He crossed to her in 2 strides, pulled her into his arms, held her like she was the only solid thing in a tilting world. "I'm sorry, I couldn't stop them without revealing too much." "I know." His arms tightened. She felt him breathing, felt the cold of him seeping through her dress, grounding her. "Morgath planned this," he said against her hair. "She orchestrated everything. Your stepmother's betrayal, Kale's confrontation, the timing. Why, what does she gain?" Dorian pulled back just enough to see her face. "That's what I'm trying to understand. Silver Veil or threats, yes, but there's something personal in how she's pursuing this. Something that doesn't fit. Maybe she just hates dragons. Maybe." But doubt clouded his expression. "I've been researching, digging through old records. There's something about Morgath that doesn't add up. She appeared in court 200 years ago. No history before that. No family connections. She just arrived and rose to power impossibly fast. What are you saying?" "I'm saying she's hiding something, and I think it's connected to Silver Veil." His hands cupped her face. "But I can't prove it yet, and we're running out of time. 5 days, less than 5 days now. Can you get me out?" Even as she asked, Vesper knew the answer. "Not without starting a civil war. The council voted for your detention. If I override them, I look compromised, weak. They'll question my fitness to rule. So I stay here until the trial." "No," his thumbs stroked her cheekbones. "You stay here until I can find proof that Morgath is lying, that she's the real threat." Hope flickered small and fragile. "And if you can't find proof," Dorian's expression went hard, "then I'll burn the council chambers to the ground and carry you out myself." She almost believed he would. "In the meantime," he continued, "we train. Every night I'll come here after the others sleep. Teach you everything I can about controlling your power." "Why if I'm going to die anyway?" "You're not going to die." The absolute conviction in his voice left no room for argument. "I won't allow it." Vesper wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that a vampire king could defy his entire council to save one accused woman. But she'd learned long ago that wanting didn't make things true. Still, she had 5 days, and a king willing to risk everything for her. That had to count for something. "Teach me," she said. "Teach me everything." Dorian smiled, fierce and beautiful and terrifying. "We start now." Days blurred together in the darkness. Day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7. Every night Dorian came, always after midnight, always alone. He'd bribed the guards, threatened them, or simply compelled them to sleep. Vesper never asked which. They trained in the cramped cell. Vesper learning to shift partially, hold the form shift back. learning to breathe small flames, control the temperature, make the fire purify instead of destroy, and every night they shared dreams. Not intentionally at first, but the bond between them had grown stronger, fed by proximity and danger and desperate hope. When they touched, visions bled through. On day 5, Vesper saw Dorian's forced bonding in full. A tent, night, a woman with cruel eyes and power that tasted like rotting flowers. She'd captured him through trickery, bound him with blood magic. For 3 months he'd been her puppet. No will, no voice, just a body that obeyed while his mind screamed. When he finally broke free, he'd killed her, then spent a century learning to trust anyone again. "I'm sorry," Vesper whispered, tears tracking down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry that happened to you. It made me what I am." His thumb brushed away her tears. Someone who understands that power without consent is just another word for slavery. On day 6, Dorian saw Vesper's memories of Constance. Years of small cruelties, comments about her worthlessness, comparisons to Odessa. The way Constance would smile at her in public and cut her to ribbons in private. 8 years of being tolerated, but never loved. "She's a monster," Dorian said, voice cold enough to freeze oceans. "And when this is over, I'll make sure she regrets every moment she hurt you." Revenge won't change the past. No, but it might make the future safer for everyone else she'd hurt. Fair point. But it was the last vision late on day 7 that changed everything. Vesper had fallen asleep, sitting against the wall, exhausted from hours of training. Dorian sat beside her, keeping watch. The dream pulled them both under. Not a memory this time. Something older. Something that predated both of them. A throne room, opulent, ancient, 300 years in the past. 12 vampires stood in a circle, discussing, arguing. "The silver veil grow too powerful. They threaten our authority. They free our thralls, destroy our bonds. We must act before they unite against us." And standing at the head of the council, younger but unmistakable, was Morgath. "I will handle the silver veil problem," she said, "personally." The vision shifted. Battlefields, fire, dragons falling from the sky as vampires swarmed, silver flames guttering and dying. Morgath moved through the carnage, face serene, collecting something from each fallen dragon. Small vials filled with glowing silver liquid. Dragon blood. She drank it. All of it. Power flooded her veins. The vision shattered. Vesper jolted awake. Dorian's eyes snapped open at the same moment. "She killed them," Vesper breathed. "Morgath led the genocide. And she drank their blood." Dorian stood pacing the small cell. Dragon blood grants power, longevity. She's maintained her strength for 3 centuries by consuming what she stole. But the dragons are gone. The blood must be running out. Understanding lit Dorian's eyes like lightning, unless she finds a new source. The pieces fell into place with horrible clarity. "She doesn't want to kill me," Vesper whispered, "and she wants to drain me, take my blood, my power." "Yes," Dorian's hands clenched into fists. "The trial is a formality. She's already decided your fate. Then we run, tonight, now. She'll hunt you, chase you to the ends of the realm." Dorian knelt in front of her. "But there's another option." "What? We expose her, prove she orchestrated the genocide, show the council what she really is. How the vision was shared between us. No one else saw it." Dorian's expression went calculating. "Dangerous. Dragonfire purifies, burns away lies, reveals truth." Hope sparked. "The council records. If she falsified them 300 years ago, your fire could reveal the original text, prove she lied." He stood pulling her up with him. "Tomorrow, at the trial, when they bring you before the council. They'll try to kill me if I use my power. I'll protect you." His hands framed her face. "I swear it. On my crown, on my life, I will not let them take you." Vesper searched his eyes, saw absolute truth there. "One more day," she whispered. "One more day, and then you burn the lies to ashes and take your freedom back." He kissed her then. First time. Slow and deep and desperate. Ice and fire meeting. The bond between them blazed bright enough to light the cell like midday. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, the silver thread pulsed with new strength. Tomorrow was day 8. The trial. The reckoning. Vesper smiled, and for the first time in days it felt real. Let Morgath bring her false charges and bought testimony. Vesper Ashbourne had dragonfire in her veins, and tomorrow the whole realm would burn with truth. Day 8 dawned the color of old blood. Vesper woke to the sound of hammering. Wood striking stone, metal scraping metal. The sounds of construction that meant only one thing. They were building the pyre. She sat up on the narrow bench. Every muscle ached from 7 days of confinement. 7 nights of training that left her exhausted and powerful in equal measure. Her body felt like it belonged to someone else now, someone stronger, someone dangerous, someone who could burn the world if she chose. The cell door opened. Not Dorian this time. Guards, 6 of them, more than necessary for one woman in chains. On your feet. The captain's voice carried no emotion, just duty. The trial begins in 1 hour. They didn't give her time to wash, to change clothes. She stood in the same gray dress she'd worn for 8 days, stained now, with sweat and stone dust and despair. Silver manacles closed around her wrists, cold, heavy, designed to suppress magical abilities. They burned against her skin, but Vesper kept her face blank. She'd learned to hide pain years ago living under Constance's roof. The guards led her up from the dungeons, through corridors lined with portraits of dead nobles who'd never known what it meant to be powerless. Upstairs that climbed toward daylight and judgment. The great doors opened. Sunlight hit her like a fist. Vesper blinked against the brightness, eyes watering after so long in darkness. When her vision cleared, her breath stopped. The town square had been transformed into an execution ground. A wooden platform dominated the center, raised high enough that everyone could see. And on that platform, a pyre. Logs stacked in careful patterns. Oil-soaked kindling. Silver chains hanging from a central post waiting to bind her while she burned. But worse than the pyre were the people. Thousands had gathered. Every vampire lord and their entourages. Every human from Thornmere and the surrounding villages. All come to witness justice or murder. The line between the two had always been thin as spider silk. They lined the square 10 deep, pressed against buildings, hung from windows. Children perched on fathers' shoulders for a better view of the show. And there on a raised platform to the left sat the 12 vampire lords in their judgment seats. Dorian at the center face carved from winter ice. Beside him, Morgath in crimson velvet, smiling like a cat with a mouse trap between its paws. The guards marched Vesper up the steps to the pyre. Each footfall echoed. The crowd's murmur died to silence. Thousands of eyes tracking her movement, judging, condemning. On the VIP platform to the right, Vesper spotted Constance and Odessa. Her stepmother wore deep purple, expensive fabric that 100,000 gold pieces could buy. Odessa's dress shimmered with silver thread. Both looked satisfied, comfortable, safe. The betrayal cut deeper than it had any right to. Vesper had known Constance didn't love her and had accepted it years ago, but some small part of her had still hoped, still believed that family meant something. That part died watching Constance smile. The guards chained Vesper to the post. Silver links wrapped around her wrists, her waist, her ankles. The metal seared her skin where it touched. She bit the inside of her cheek until she tasted copper. Didn't cry out. Wouldn't give them that satisfaction. When the chains were secure, the captain stepped back, addressed the crowd. Vesper Ashbourne stands accused of being Silver Veil, a bloodline of traitors who attempted to overthrow vampire rule 3 centuries past. Evidence has been presented, testimony heard. The council has voted. He turned to the vampire lords. What is your judgment? Morgath rose, graceful, deadly, a serpent in silk. The evidence is overwhelming. Multiple witnesses attest to her unnatural abilities. Her own family confirmed her strangeness. Morgath's voice carried to every corner of the square. For the safety of the realm, for the protection of the natural order, we find Vesper Ashbourne guilty. The sentence is death by fire, to be carried out immediately. The crowd erupted. Some cheered, some gasped. Most just watched with the morbid fascination people reserve for public executions. Vesper searched for Dorian, found his eyes across the distance, saw the war raging behind that controlled expression. The thread between them pulled taut, vibrating with his barely leashed fury. Trust me, she thought, hoped he could feel it through the bond. Trust me. His fingers whitened on the armrest, but he stayed seated, stayed silent. Morgath descended from the platform, crossed to the pyre with unhurried grace. In her hand she carried a torch. Flames danced orange and hungry. She stopped at the base of the pyre, looked up at Vesper with eyes that promised slow death and stolen power. Any last words? Morgath's smile cut like broken glass. Vesper met her gaze. Didn't flinch. Just one question. How much longer will the stolen dragon blood sustain you a year, a month? Is that why you're so eager to burn me, because you're running out of time? Morgath's expression flickered, just for a heartbeat. Surprise, then rage. "Light it," she commanded. The guards moved forward with torches, touched flame to oil-soaked kindling. Fire caught, spread, raced up the carefully stacked logs with greedy speed. Heat washed over Vesper in waves. Smoke stung her eyes. The crowd pressed closer, eager to see her burn, to watch justice served, to witness a monster destroyed. The flames climbed higher, licked at the platform, reached for her with burning fingers. Vesper closed her eyes, felt the dragon inside her wake fully for the first time. No more hiding, no more control, just fire meeting fire. The flames touched her skin, and Vesper began to laugh. The sound cut through the roar of fire and crowd, high, clear, triumphant, because the flames didn't burn her. She absorbed them. Silver light exploded from Vesper's body. The chain shattered, metal screaming as it broke. The pyre collapsed, inward flames swirling around her like a cloak made of starlight and heat. The crowd's cheers turned to screams. Vesper stood at the center of the inferno, unburned, untouched, power radiating from her in waves that made the air shimmer. Gales emerged, not slowly this time, not tentatively. They rippled across her skin in flowing patterns iridescent as oil on water, silver and pearl and every color that existed in the space between light and shadow. Her spine cracked, reformed. Wings burst from her shoulder blades with the sound of tearing silk. Massive, magnificent. Membranes thin as gossamer but strong as steel, supported by bones that gleamed like polished ivory. Vesper's body shifted, grew, the human form falling away like a discarded chrysalis. She became 25 feet of scaled fury, wings that spanned 40 feet when fully extended, eyes that glowed like molten silver, claws that could rend stone, teeth designed for more than eating. A dragon. The last silver-veiled dragon stood in the ruins of her execution pyre and roared. The sound shattered windows 3 streets away. Birds exploded from trees, horses screamed and bolted, and every vampire in the square stumbled back, clutching their heads as something deeper than sound resonated in their bones. Because Vesper's roar carried fire, not the fire that destroyed, the fire that purified. Every compulsion bond within 200 meters snapped like overstretched rope. Blood servants who'd been enslaved for decades suddenly gasped and fell to their knees, minds their own again, for the first time in living memory. Thralls who couldn't remember their own names blinked and wept as stolen memories flooded back. Freedom rippled outward like a stone dropped in still water. The crowd descended into chaos. Freed servants attacking their former masters. Vampires shouting orders that no longer held power. Humans running in every direction, unsure if they should flee or fight or simply witness this impossible thing. On the judgment platform, Dorian stood, his eyes locked on Vesper's dragon form, with something that looked like awe and love and terror all braided together. And Morgath's face twisted with pure rage. "Kill it!" she shrieked. "Kill the beast now!" But her words had no force. Her compulsion magic broken like everything else in Vesper's radius of purifying fire. The vampire lords looked at each other. Some rose, some stayed seated, all uncertain. Then Morgath's form began to change. She grew, twisted, her beautiful facade cracking like porcelain to reveal what lived beneath. Ancient, monstrous, a vampire who'd lived 5 centuries fed on stolen dragon blood. Her skin turned gray as ash. Veins black as tar spread across her face. Her fingernails became talons. Her mouth widened, jaw unhinging, to reveal rows of needle teeth. This was what Morgath truly was, what she'd hidden beneath beauty and grace. A demon wearing a vampire's skin. She launched herself at Vesper with inhuman speed. Vesper met her midair. They collided with the force of a thunderclap. Dragon claws against demonic talons. Silver fire against shadow magic. They crashed into the cobblestones hard enough to crack stone. Vesper's jaws snapped at Morgath's throat. Missed. Her tail whipped around, caught Morgath's midsection, sent her tumbling across the square. Morgath recovered instantly. Faster than anything that size should move. She pounced, landed on Vesper's back. Talons sank deep between scales, seeking the spine beneath. Pain exploded, white hot. Vesper roared and rolled, crushing Morgath beneath her bulk. Felt ribs crack. Heard Morgath scream of rage and pain. They broke apart, circled each other, dragon and demon, both bleeding, both furious. "You should have stayed hidden," Morgath hissed. "Should have died quietly like your ancestors." Vesper's response came as fire, a torrent of silver flames that poured from her throat like liquid moonlight. Morgath threw up a shield of shadow magic. The two forces met, canceled each other. Steam and smoke filled the square. Through the haze, a figure moved. Dorian. He'd shed his royal finery, descended from the platform. Now he stood between the circling combatants, and ice bloomed from his hands. Not the cold of death, the cold of winter. Pure, clean, terrible. He raised both hands and frost spread across the square. It crawled up Morgath's legs, slowing her movement, crystallized the blood on the ground, made the air itself hard to breathe. "You lied to my council," Dorian said, voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Manipulated us, used us for 300 years. Morgath snarled, tried to break free of the ice, failed. The realm needed order, stability. Silver Veil threatened that. Silver Veil threatened your power. Dorian's hands clenched. The ice tightened. And you committed genocide to protect it. I did what was necessary. You murdered children. Vesper's dragon voice rumbled like distant thunder. Killed families, drank their blood to steal their strength. Morgath's laugh was broken glass and madness. And I'd do it again. You think your fire makes you righteous? You're just another beast that needs putting down. She exploded from the ice with a burst of dark magic that sent shards flying. Lunged not at Vesper but at the crowd, at the humans still trapped in the square. Civilians who couldn't defend themselves. Vesper moved on instinct, placed herself between Morgath and the innocents, took the demon's claws across her chest, felt them tear through scales to the muscle beneath. But she didn't fall. Instead, she wrapped her talons around Morgath's arms, held her fast, looked into those mad black eyes. "I'm not going to kill you," Vesper said. Morgath's expression shifted. Confusion, then fear. "I'm going to show them what you really are." Vesper breathed fire, not a torrent this time, a focused stream, surgical, precise. The flames wrapped around Morgath like lovers' hands, silver light sinking into gray flesh, burning away not the body but the lies, the stolen power, the magic that had sustained her for 5 centuries. Morgath screamed, thrashed, tried to break free, but dragonfire purified, and there was so much falseness to burn away. The demon form melted, revealed the vampire beneath, but not the beautiful woman who'd sat on the council. This was Morgath's true form, the one she'd hidden under stolen dragon blood and dark enchantments. Withered, ancient, skin like parchment stretched over visible bone, hair white and thin, eyes sunken deep in their sockets, hands gnarled into claws not from power but from age. 500 years of life without the blood to sustain it. The crowd gasped. The vampire lords rose from their seats, stared in horror at what their counselor had truly been. Morgath collapsed, the strength gone from her limbs. Just a frail ancient thing that had outlived its time by feeding on the young. Dorian crossed to her, knelt, looked into her failing eyes. "You knew what I'd been through," he said quietly. "You knew what forced bonding did to me. And still you orchestrated this. Still you tried to enslave another person." Morgath's lips moved. No sound came out. Too weak even for words. Dorian stood, drew a blade from his belt. Ice crystallized along the edge. He raised it high. "For every silver veil you murdered, for every life you stole, for every bond you forced and every freedom you destroyed." The blade descended. This is justice. It pierced Morgath's heart clean through. Ice spread from the wound, freezing her from the inside. Her mouth opened in a silent scream. Then she crumbled. Not to ash, to dust. 5 centuries of borrowed time collecting its debt all at once. The wind scattered her remains across the square. Silence fell like a curtain. Vesper stood in her dragon form, breathing hard, bleeding from a dozen wounds. Dorian stood over the pile of dust that had been Morgath blades still raised. The vampire lords watched from their platform, frozen in shock. Then Lord Kale dropped to one knee. One by one, the others followed. 12 vampire lords kneeling before a dragon and a king who'd just executed one of their own. "Forgive us," Kale said. His voice carried no arrogance now, just raw honesty. "We were deceived, used. The evidence against Vesper Ashbourne was false. We see that now." Dorian's gaze swept across them. "You'll do more than apologize. You'll help make this right." "Anything, Your Majesty." Movement on the VIP platform caught Vesper's eye. Constance and Odessa, trying to slip away in the chaos, moving toward the back of the platform where steps led down to a side street. Vesper shifted. The dragon form fell away like shedding skin. She stood human again, naked, but for the scales that still covered strategic places. Someone threw her a cloak. She wrapped it around herself without breaking stride, crossed the square in 10 long steps, bounded up the platform stairs, reached the fleeing women before they'd made it halfway to escape. Leaving so soon, Vesper's voice carried across the suddenly silent crowd. The execution's not over yet. Constance spun. Fear flashed across her face before she mastered it, replaced it with that same calculating expression Vesper had seen 1,000 times. Vesper, thank goodness you're alive. The lie came smooth as silk. I was so worried. They forced me to testify. Threatened Odessa if I didn't. Stop. The word cracked like a whip. I'm done listening to your lies. Odessa clutched her mother's arm. You're not going to hurt us. You're too soft, too kind. That's always been your weakness. Vesper smiled, and it was the smile of a dragon wearing human skin. You sold me for 100,000 gold pieces. She took a step closer. Told them I was a monster. Testified against me knowing they'd burn me alive. Another step. You smiled while I was chained to a pyre. Constance's mask cracked. Fear bled through. You're my daughter. I was never your daughter. Vesper's hands began to glow. Silver light building in her palms. I was convenient, a source of income, someone to blame and use and throw away when it suited you. We didn't have a choice, Odessa's voice pitched high. Morgath offered so much money. We're in debt, the creditors. You had a choice, Vesper cut her off. You chose gold over family, comfort over conscience, your lives over mine. The silver light grew brighter, hotter. Constance dropped to her knees. Please, mercy. We made a mistake. We're sorry. Are you sorry you did it? Vesper asked quietly. Or sorry you got caught? No answer. That was answer enough. Vesper raised her glowing hands. Constance and Odessa screamed, threw up their arms, waiting for dragonfire to consume them. But Vesper didn't burn them. She placed her palms on their foreheads, gentle, almost tender, and the fire that left her hands was soft, warm, not destructive but revealing. It rippled across Constance and Odessa like water, sank into their skin, searched for magic, for enchantment, for any trace of vampire influence, found Morgath's parting gift, the promise of immortality, the dark magic that would have turned them vampire once Vesper was dead and the reward fully earned. Vesper burned it away. Constance gasped as the magic left her, aged 5 years and 5 seconds. The lines around her eyes deepened, gray threaded through her hair. Odessa's scream was higher, sharper, as the illusion of eternal beauty crumbled and revealed the person beneath. Plain, ordinary, mortal. They collapsed in a heap, sobbing, clutching each other. Vesper looked down at them without pity. I won't kill you, she said. That would be mercy. She turned to the crowd, found the captain of the guard. These women accepted payment to falsely testify against an innocent person. They conspired with Lady Morgath to commit murder. The penalty for such crimes is exile and forfeiture of all assets. The captain nodded. The gold they received, confiscated, returned to the royal treasury. Vesper glanced at Constance. You wanted gold so badly. Now you have nothing. Not money, not status, not even the immortality you were promised. Constance looked up. Mascara streaked her face. Where will we go? Anywhere outside vampire territory. You have until sunset to leave Thornmere. Vesper's voice held no warmth. If you're found within the realm, after that the sentence is death. No trial, no mercy. Guards moved forward, hauled Constance and Odessa to their feet, began marching them away. Odessa twisted back. You're a monster, just like they said. Vesper met her eyes. No, I'm what you made me. Something that learned not to trust family, not to believe in love, not to expect kindness. She smiled without humor. Thank you for that lesson. It'll serve me well as queen. The word hung in the air. Queen. The crowd stirred, whispered, looked to Dorian. He stood at the base of the pyre, watching Vesper with an expression that made her chest ache. Pride. Love. Something deeper than either. Yes, he said, voice carrying to every corner of the square. Queen. He crossed to the platform, climbed the stairs, stopped in front of Vesper. Then the Vampire King knelt. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Vampires didn't kneel, especially not kings. But Dorian pressed one fist to his heart, bowed his head. Vesper Ashbourne, Last of Silver Vale. Dragon. Savior. Mate. He looked up. Storm gray eyes holding hers. Will you have me? Will you rule beside me? Will you help me build a realm where bonds are chosen, not forced? Where power serves rather than enslaves? The question asked for more than marriage. It asked for partnership, revolution, a complete transformation of how their world worked. Vesper's throat closed. Tears pricked her eyes. Not from grief this time, from something she'd never expected to feel. Hope. Yes, she whispered. Then louder. Yes, Dorian stood, pulled her into his arms, kissed her in front of thousands of witnesses. The crowd erupted, some cheering, some crying, some still too shocked to process what they'd witnessed. But Vesper heard none of it, just the thunder of her own heartbeat, the sound of Dorian's breathing, the feeling of the thread between them blazing bright as the sun. When they broke apart, Dorian kept her hand in his, turned to face the crowd. Today was meant to be an execution. Instead, it marks a beginning. His voice rang clear. The council has been cleansed of corruption. Silver Vale are not enemies, but guardians. And this realm will be built on consent, not compulsion. He raised their joined hands. Tonight, under this same moon we bond. Vampire and dragon, king and queen, by choice, by love, witnessed by all. The high priest stepped forward from the crowd, ancient, impartial. He'd performed bonding rites for 5 centuries. As sunset painted the sky in shades of amber and rose, they stood together in the square where Vesper should have burned. Dorian raised his wrist to his mouth, bit down, blood welled dark and rich. He offered it to Vesper. She took his wrist, met his eyes, drank. The blood tasted like winter nights and frozen stars. Power flooded her veins, not stealing, sharing, the bond between them snapping fully into place. Then Vesper raised her own wrist, thought about fire, about transformation. Her blood, when it welled, glowed faintly silver. Dorian drank and gasped, because dragon blood did more than bond. It transformed. The shadows that always clung to vampires lifted from Dorian, burned away by purifying fire. He wouldn't lose his strength or speed, but he'd gain something no vampire had possessed in millennia, the ability to walk in full sunlight without pain. He looked at his hands in the dying light, then at the horizon where the sun still lingered. Tomorrow, he breathed, I'll see tomorrow's sunrise. The priest raised their joined hands. I present to you King Dorian Nightshade and Queen Vesper Ashbourne, bonded by blood, united by choice. May their reign bring light to shadow and justice to all. The crowd's cheers shook buildings. Vesper and Dorian stood together as the sun set and the first stars emerged. 8 days ago, she'd been nobody, a healer they called useless. Now she was queen. And tomorrow the real work would begin. 3 months later. Vesper stood on the palace balcony watching the sunrise paint Thornmere in shades of gold and rose. The reforms were progressing. All compelled blood bonds dissolved. Thralls freed. New laws established. Vampires who'd relied on slaves struggled to adapt. Some left the realm entirely. Others learned that paid employees worked harder than compelled servants. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. A raven landed on the balustrade. It carried a message. Vesper unrolled the tiny parchment, read the words written in shaky hand. We're sorry, we were wrong. Please forgive us. C and O Constance and Odessa, writing from whatever border town they'd settled in. Vesper looked at the message for a long moment, then held it over a candle flame, watched it burn. Some apologies came too late. Some damage couldn't be repaired. Maybe someday, maybe never. Either way, Vesper had moved on. She spread her arms, let the transformation take her, scales rippling across skin, wings unfurling, body reshaping into the dragon form that felt like home. She launched from the balcony, caught an updraft, soared over Thornmere as the sun climbed higher. Below, people emerged from homes, pointed, waved. Children cheered. The Dragon Queen, no longer a monster to fear, a symbol of change, of hope. Vesper spiraled higher, felt Dorian's presence in her mind, felt him standing in the sunrise, the first sunrise he'd seen in 500 years watching her fly, felt the warmth of his love through the bond that would last lifetimes. She roared, not in anger, in joy. The sound echoed across the valley, a declaration, a promise. They'd called her useless for 28 years, broken, wrong, worthless. They'd tried to burn her. Instead, she'd burned away their lies, their corruption, their cruelty, and risen from the ashes as something they never expected. A queen who chose her crown, a dragon who chose her king, a woman who'd learned that her greatest power wasn't fire or scales or wings. It was choosing herself, every single day. Vesper Ashbourne flew into the morning sun, and the realm below began to heal.